Hi everyone, I want to extend a warm welcome to all of you attending the Delphi Economic Forum Toronto. Events like this one are so important for building on the economic partnership between Canada and Greece. By working together, we can create good jobs, attract investment, and build partnerships that will last for generations to come. I'm confident this forum will lead to even stronger ties and great opportunities for both countries. Wishing you a fantastic event and God bless.
Everybody, it's great to see you today. I'm very happy to be here. I'm going to be moderating a panel on something we're all very aware of, kind of what's happening in the world and the degree to which it is impacting not only Canada, but Canada and Europe, and specifically Greece's relationship. And we're very lucky to be joined by two panelists who know a lot about all of those subjects. The ambassador of Greece to Canada will be with me here on stage, and the Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Jobs, and you can track as well. So yeah, so if I could ask both of you to join me, that'd be great.
Before starting to that question, I just wanted to say that I was lucky today to have the Minister presenting this extremely good presentation, and he covered a lot of my issues here today, so my job is easier. And having said that, I go straight to your question. And of course, we live in a new era in international relations. We live in an era that the world as we knew after the Second World War has changed. The ways of conducting diplomacy have changed. The style of conducting diplomacy has changed. And this is a new reality that we all have to go along with. I don't know if this will be stability forever, but this is a reality for now. So for sure, it's a tectonic shift. We have major incidents, not only in Europe, but also in the Near East. And these developments give a new dimension to international relations and put to question international relations.
Ms. Koutrakis, do you think that this is a tectonic shift, and what in your view brought it on?
First of all, I wanted to say good morning to everyone. It's really great to be here once again this year to catch up with old friends and familiar faces, but also to make new friends. And I want to thank the Delphi Economic Forum and its team for always putting on such a great forum. And thank you, Vashi, for accepting to moderate this panel. I want to commend you on your show. I try to listen to it or watch it as often as I can, whenever I can, so thank you for being here. Definitely the world has changed. It's not perhaps at the same scale as it was in World War I, coming out of it, or World War II, but I think the mindset has changed and brought on by the very dramatic change from south of the border. I think, Europe and the worldwide has been affected by the change in how we conduct diplomacy. I have to agree with you, Ambassador, very much so. But Canada specifically is affected by it because we are, closest neighbor, allies and friends for so many years. And we find ourselves, in the midst of a tariff war with our closest and biggest trading partner. So I think Canada, this was a wake-up call. I truly believe, and I have said this before, I think Canada will come out stronger. I think Canada is looking to its talent within, because we do have a lot of talent within. And I truly believe when our Prime Minister Carney says that Canada can give itself more than it gives away to anybody else, I truly believe that. But I don't think that the world will ever be the same again. I think this is a paradigm shift, and I think, things will be different going forward, and we have to be ready for it.
Do you think, Ambassador, is that consequential? And I'll ask because I was interviewing last week, for example, 4 CEOs of the biggest pension funds here. They all collectively argued Look, the world has gone through ups and downs before. This is just another one. Yes, it presents a unique set of challenges and perhaps opportunities, but it won't necessarily destabilize things as much as as lots of people are saying. It's not exceptional in that regard. What do you think about that?
Well, I share this opinion. I'm not sure if this is an exceptional situation. And as you very well said, the world has gone through dramatic shifts many times in the 20th century, if not in the past, further before as well. It remains to be seen if this will be a worse or more dramatic situation than those that happened before. Of course, as Ms. Koutraki said, I think the change in the relation between Canada and the United States, this seems to be final. But we don't know that either. However, I believe that the world and the world diplomacy will find a way to settle and survive. And as Canada believes, also Greece believes that a rules-based international order is very, very important. If the style changes, if the priorities change, the rules are those that matter. We must implement international law. We must keep in mind that pacta sunt servanda. We must keep in mind that we have to follow friendly neighborhood relations with our neighbors, no matter where these neighborhoods are. And in Greece, we live in a very particular neighborhood. And having said that, I want to underline what also the minister said, that Greece is a pillar of stability in our area, is a pillar of stability economically, politically, strategically, for all our allies.
As the ambassador kind of mentioned, jumping off your point, Ms. Koutrakis, we feel it in a very punctuated way here, in a perhaps a different way than the kind of like esoteric way much of the rest of the world feels. We feel it tangibly because it has had such a direct impact on our economy, most specifically, but also on our mindset. Your government is about to table a hugely significant budget tomorrow. Take us, if you could, behind the curtain a little bit, and how much has what's happened over the last 8 months with the United States, with the tariffs, et cetera, how much of that is impacting what you intend to deliver tomorrow?
Tomorrow is indeed a historic day. It will be the first budget that we will table, that our Minister of Finance will table for this new government. That I have to remind everybody in this room is only 6 months into its mandate. And already we've achieved quite a bit legislatively, but also with all the announcements that we have made pre-budget. It will be historic tomorrow in that we decided to invest more and spend less. And I think this is something that all Canadians have been asking for a really long time. I mean, our productivity has fallen behind. We perhaps were not making the investments that we should have been making in infrastructure and building more here in Canada. And this is why I said earlier that what's happened in the United States has been a wake-up call. Because we all have to admit that the United States, for a really long time, especially since World War II, has been picking up a lot of, for a lack of a better word, slack. We became complacent. So, investing in our defense is very important to Canada and for the rest of the world. Bringing back some of the manufacturing and to utilize the resources that we have as Canadians and also the talent pool that we have as Canadians has become more important than ever before. So yes, the US will continue to be our #1 trading partner and our friend. This is exactly what our government wants. We want to continue having that trading partner, but at the same time, we want to make sure and diversify so that when there are changes with our #1 trading partner, that it has less of an impact on the Canadian population, our country, and our sovereignty for that matter. I think that you will see, I have not seen the budget. But I think that our Prime Minister has been very vocal, where he has been saying that the time to invest in Canada is now, and who better than Canadians here in Canada, and I think we will achieve that.
I'll just follow up quickly and ask you, you mentioned that your government would like to see us remain, the United States remain the #1 trading partner. Right now, I know the room is familiar, the trade talks have completely come to a halt. The president ended them about 2 weeks ago. Do you think the US, do you think the White House still wants us to be its #1 trading partner?
I really do. I remain optimistic. We have a lot more that unites us as two nations. We are cousins, we are brothers, we speak the same language. In many ways, we have the same values. We have a history there. It's not easy to just turn around, and I truly believe that. I know that Prime Minister Carney believes that, and so does our caucus. We've been told time and time again to continue fostering our relations. I'm really happy to see Senator Lou Raptakis here with us, the president. He's a state senator from Rhode Island. And I think he knows how well our two countries and what we think of each other, and we're friends. And we're gonna remain friends. Yes, things sometimes in order to achieve a better result, you have to take a few steps back. And I think that we're both gonna come out, both nations are going to come out stronger. And I think Canada will be in a better position, as Minister Dimas said, that as Greece is known as a stable democracy in the area and a stable economy in the area, I think that Canada, which is respected around the world on so many different levels, will see that Canada is back, Canada is in business, we're here to accept investments, and I think the budget will outline that tomorrow. And we say to our European friends, not only Greece, look to Canada. Canada has a lot to offer, and we're gonna be there and we're gonna deliver.
So let's pick up on that point, Ambassador, because I think if you look at the rhetoric and the actions of the Prime Minister, he did just come back from a trip to Asia, but primarily he has spent most of his trips abroad going to Europe. And initially, upon his election, when talking about the overarching objective of moving away from such reliance on the US, right now, 75% on average for years and years and years of our exports have gone to just the United States, right? He has consistently said, he turned to Europe and talked about sort of the historical ties between Europe and Canada. CETA has been in place for a long time. How do you view, at this point, hearing that from Canada? How possible do you think it is?
Well, it's absolutely possible. As you said, Prime Minister Carney went to Europe as the first trips after he undertook his office here, and this past summer, Europe and Canada signed the Strategic Defense Agreement. Many other agreements offer great possibilities for diversification, as Canada puts it, in defense, in trade, in commerce, in business, in investments, in every sector of economy and not only. So the strategic agreement on defense puts great possibilities there. We have a lot of other tools within Europe. CETA is one of them. Another one is the program Horizon, which gives also great possibilities for participation of Canadian companies. Another one, of course, is the SAFE, the defense program that Europe just launched very recently. That program involves about 150 billion euro in defense programs and allows third countries that are eligible, that comply with the criteria that the European Union puts, to cooperate with European Union companies and countries in the defense sector. Now, Canada is one of the countries that do fulfill those criteria, and I think it will be a great potential there. Also, further than the European Union-Canadian direct contact and possibility for investments, we have to underline the great possibilities for investments between Greece and Canada on a bilateral level. Now here, we as probably many of you know, we have already a lot of Canadian investments in Greece. and I look forward to the Haviland presentation later today. And as you probably know, the Haviland established an office in Greece that will help in the maintenance of the airplanes, of the bombardiers that we are purchasing from Canada. And this is also something that we should underline and comment, that Greece was the first country to order 7 bombardiers from the Haviland. And the first one is being produced. I went there and saw it, inspected, and we will be also the first country to receive these bombardiers. So this is a huge investment. We have CAE, a company that cooperates at the Eleftherios Venizelos airport, and they have also plans to expand their cooperation in training pilots, not only in political but also in military aircrafts. So we look forward to that. We have, of course, El Dorado Gold, we have Fairfax, and we have a big investment from Greece to Canada, which is Metlen, a very important company that has a huge investment in Alberta, an investment that is about 2 billion Canadian dollars. Those investments give great potential, create jobs, create possibilities, build bridges, and I'm sure that there are very many more ones. To name one is energy. As the minister said and presented earlier on, we have great potential in Greece. We have the port of Alexandroupolis that is going to, and is already, and is going to be further developed as a connection between Greece and Central and Eastern Europe. Interconnection in Europe, in European Union, is a very important aspect of business. Also in energy is other possibilities, LNG transport. Greece has 2 main terminals in LNG, one in Revithoussa and one in Alexandroupolis. These are also great possibilities for Canadians. We heard recently that Canada would like to sell some LNG to Greece, and our maritime fleet, of course, is one of the biggest in the world. They can contribute to that. So there are huge possibilities to further develop our bilateral relations. Not to speak, of course, about culture. Culture is a very important aspect which we used to underestimate, but culture creates also possibilities for economical development. Culture creates also jobs and build bridges and ties and strengthens the relation. At this point, I would like to underline the exhibition that the Archaeological Museum Partakaye is going to present in 2026 in Montreal, which is a very, very interesting and important exhibition. And I look forward that this exhibition might come here to Toronto as well and to other Canadian cities. So in every aspect of economy and people-to-people ties, and also in this respect, our community here, we have a huge, a very vibrant Greek-Canadian community that really is the very important link between the 2 countries and can make the difference. And to close on this matter, I also want to underline that to boost businesses, we also have to have a direct connection between Greece and Canada the year round. The direct flights are now based on a touristic aspect. They're on during the summer months. Now they have expanded a little bit into November. We try to convince our Canadian counterparts and the people that we talk that it can be sustainable and profitable to have a direct connection between Athens and Toronto and Montreal the year round. That's very important for business, that's very important for people-to-people ties, that's very important for our bilateral relations.
Okay, there's a lot to unpack there. I want to drill down into the economic opportunities specifically, because when you mentioned LNG, it jumped out at me. Not too long ago, Prime Minister Mitsotakis was here, and I specifically asked him, would Greece be willing to buy Canadian LNG? And he very directly answered yes. The answer, at the time, we had a different Prime Minister, same party, Mr. Petrakis, different Prime Minister, who, and he was not the first leader. Chancellor Scholz at the time had said the same thing. The President of Poland at the time, President Duda, had told me the same thing. The previous Prime Minister said there wasn't a business case for doing it. This Prime Minister, Mr. Petrakis, has insisted the opposite is true. How serious is your government about exporting more energy to Europe specifically, and even Greece directly? And how do you intend to convince the Europeans that this time is different than the last time?
I think we just have to look at what our Prime Minister says, and he means what he says. There's no one better right now to be heading Canada that knows the Canadian economy better and how the world works. I mean, he's got many years. I don't want to go through his CV. Everybody knows his CV. And I'm not up here to, elevate my Prime Minister more than he has elevated himself with his experience. He has time and time said that he would like Canada to become a superpower in energy. He means that. There's a lot of things happening behind the scenes. I think he has surrounded himself with people in the cabinet that are experts in that regard, that also have the network and the insight how we can get there. I think that you will see things in the budget that will point to that direction. We have said that we have an office that's going to be expediting big projects. That will happen. Red tape will be eliminated. That will happen. And I think that, again, there's a shift in the world. When Prime Minister Trudeau was the Prime Minister of Canada, times were different. Fast forward 2 years later almost, the world has shifted again. Canada has many resources that unfortunately we're not being tapped into. I don't want to compare the then government with the now government. I prefer to see what forward-looking and what we can achieve now. I think there is a lot that we can achieve. I think with Metlin, there's a lot of opportunities there, and the conversations have not stopped, and they will continue to stop. I think that we can be really great partners. Metlin has a lot to offer to Canada, as we have a lot to offer Metlin and other companies. We've got pension funds. We've got 8 strong pension funds that are, have $3 trillion that are just waiting to be invested, not only here in Canada. We're encouraging them to invest here in Canada, but at the same time diversify their investments and look elsewhere beyond. Greece can be one of those places. The PSP is already the major shareholder for Athens International Airport, and I'm sure there are other opportunities to do. I was lucky enough to sit in a recent meeting between Minister Steve McKinnon, our transport minister, and government house leader, and Minister Dimas, and I walked away from that meeting feeling very encouraged. Many different things were discussed. Sharing of best practices, energy and LNG was discussed, ports were discussed. We've got big, projects for port expansion ourselves. So I think that both Greece and Canada are positioned right now to become really great trading partners, and not only the people-to-people relationship that we enjoy for more than 80 years right now, but what we can achieve together going forward. And I don't know how Minister Dimas walked away, but I know that Minister McKinnon was very happy with that exchange, and anything that we can do to increase that collaboration, we're there ready to listen, to learn, and to move forward.
I'll just follow up quickly and ask maybe a question of quantification, because the Prime Minister articulated a few weeks ago in his address that he would like to see the amount of trade we do with countries outside of the United States double over the next decade. Where does Greece fit into that?
Good question. I haven't had that conversation with him, but...
Where do you hope Greece would fit into that?
Well, I hope Greece, I think Greece has shown us over what happened in the 10 years, how it handled itself during that period and where it has landed. And I think that we share the same values, we share the same visions. I was really happy to hear from the minister that the brain drain is actually going back to Greece, because that's the wealth of any economy. We don't want to lose our youth, the talent that is there to, and I think that Canada is the same way. I think we share a lot of the same values, a lot of the same concerns. We're like-minded. And I believe that there are many, many good opportunities there, whether it's through energy, and I would really hope, and these are conversations that I will take up when I return tonight to Ottawa, and hopefully tomorrow after the budget we get a chance to go more into details. But I would hope that Greece is up there as one of the most trusted trading partners and friends in the EU. At the same time, I would encourage Greece and other European countries, but because we're here with the Greek delegation, I know that the US for all of us has been a great big market. There are other big markets out there. And oftentimes perhaps a lot of the European countries are inward looking and they do most of their trading between themselves because they share the same continent. I would encourage Greece to look for investments in Canada. So, it's not only Canadian businesses that are going to Greece and investing, but take the example of Metlin and come to Canada and make investments here as well. One of the arguments, I've been working on trying to get direct flights with, and I've been speaking to Air Canada predominantly for almost 2 years since I was Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Tourism. And it was during that time, and with Prime Minister Mitsotakis' visit, that we finally got to sign off on an MOU on tourism. Could you imagine, 80 years and we didn't have a memorandum of understanding on tourism, which opens up so many things for both countries. One of the issues that Air Canada always says is, yes, but our airplanes go to Greece and they're full. But the opposite is not necessarily true.
You mean they don't want to come here in the middle of winter for a nice vacation?
And that's the other thing I wanted to say too. Oftentimes, I go to Greece twice a year. I'm fortunate enough to be able to do that. And yes, we do have a little house in Messina, hence the question. But oftentimes people think that because we're, northern country, they think that, we've got winter 10 months out of the year. That's not true.
Yeah.
Right? And I've had people ask me, in July, do you guys have snow? And I said, you've got to be kidding, But I encourage Greece to look to Canada for more investments. We have a lot more in common. We're great allies, we're great friends, and I think we've demonstrated that time and time again. And I would hope that, Prime Minister Carney and our government is going to look to Greece to do more than we already do.
I just have a few minutes left, and I was thinking back to a few years ago, I think, when I was on the stage with two ministers who were talking, I think there has been consensus among Greece and Canada for a long time that we wanted to grow the relationship from an economic perspective. I'm wondering though, I remember at the time hearing about some of the impediments to doing so, and even though there exists this formalized agreement, it's often very hard to, contact the right people to set up the business and get things going very quickly. Ambassador, if you were to identify what you think the biggest challenge to capitalizing on what you both have laid out today is, what is it, and what's your prescription for overcoming it?
Well, it is difficult to find a prescription. However, Greece has been, as the minister also underlined, Greece has been developing in a galloping way the latest years. So every aspect of economy and in general life in Greece is ameliorating. Bureaucracy is within this. Digitalization of the Greek state has simplified a lot of activities in Greece. However, a lot needs to be done. I know that we have problems in bureaucratic procedures to set up a company, for instance, in Greece. And of course, the judicial system is a system that is under, let's say, not development, but change in a way that is more friendly and more quick to the decisions, which is very important for investments of a foreign company in Greece. But altogether, I believe that things are getting very much better, very, very fast. So I think the climate and the possibilities are there for both countries to take advantage. And as Annie just said, I also call on Canadian companies to consider coming to Greece. We have the examples of Eldorado Gold, we have the examples of the Haviland, CAE, and others, as we just said before. And what they are doing at the moment underlines exactly that the potential is there and the momentum is there for new investments in Greece. And Greece is the place to invest in the area. As I said, it's a pillar of stability. We have political and economical stability, and we have great prospects for the future. So come and invest in Greece.
All right, we'll leave it on that positive note. Thank you very much, Ambassador. Thank you, Mr. Kraft.
Thank you. Well, I'd like to call to the podium our next speakers, our next panel on inclusive growth and innovation. Ms. Delphi, Deputy Speaker, Parliamentary Assistant to the Minister of Tourism, Culture and Gaming at the Ontario Government, Mr. Mike Panatos, the Executive Director of the Hellenic Initiative in the USA, Ambassador Robert Peck, the Honorary Director of the Hellenic Initiative Canada, and Peter Polidor, Founder and President of Ergo Holdings. I'd like to welcome you all. We have a very important, I would say, panel topic to discuss, and great people to do it with. So, talking about inclusive growth and the contribution of the Greek-Canadian community and Greek-Canada relations, I would like to say more broadly, and not only, to the future of one's economy and one's country. I'd like to start by contemplating a little bit what inclusive growth entails to begin with, because as it was noticed in the previous panel as well, times are changing, and what we thought is inclusive growth is not necessarily a definition that fits every country or every political sensitivity. So I would like to start with Ms. Triantafylopoulos and ask you about how the government of Ontario you are contemplating about inclusive growth at a time of great transition in the Ontario government and in the Ontario economy, I should say.
Thank you very much for the question. And I'd like to officially welcome all of you to Toronto today. Really delighted that this is in fact our 4th economic forum in Toronto and in Canada, and I hope that it allows for the foundation for it to continue to grow in our community. So for us as a province and as a government, we were elected in 2018, and we were subsequently elected in 2022, and then most recently in February of this year. And our government was elected on a mandate to be open for business. In past years, we had seen productivity decline, we had seen high job losses, a lot of manufacturing basically leaving the province and fleeing to the US and Mexico. So part of our program and our plan was very much to build our economy again, and to do it in several pillars. One was to focus very much on being able to retrain the workforce, and to be able to retrain them and give them skilled work that would be lasting employment for the future. And as we've seen, especially with the potential harmful US tariffs on our economy, that there could be potential job losses. So many people would be in a position where they would have to retrain. So skill development was a very core part of our pillars, and we've had maybe $1.1 billion allocated to that. The other aspect was the whole issue of infrastructure development. And I noticed that Minister Dimas as well spoke about the need for infrastructure development. So we've invested heavily in hospitals, in transit, in metro development, in long-term care homes. We basically looked at our province and saw for the last 20 years those investments had not been made by previous governments. And so it was important for us to be able to lay the foundation for that kind of infrastructure development. Beyond that, our programs also focused on ways in which to attract investment into the province. And a key part of our economy is the auto manufacturing. And our economy in auto manufacturing is very much integrated with the US economy. And at the moment, we've got some concerns in terms of threats in that respect. But our government attracted something like $46 billion of investments into Ontario, specifically in the auto and in the electrical vehicle manufacturing. So some of our major auto manufacturers have made commitments in the province to be able to develop those kinds of plants into the future. So those are, I'd say, examples of the way in which we've been building out our province. And ultimately, it's about being able to create good, stable, long-term jobs for people, giving them the right tools and skills to move forward and to be able to have good paying jobs for their families. And I'll leave it at that for now.
Thank you very much for this initial setting of the table here. Ambassador Beck, I would like to ask you, you mentioned last night that you're the only non-Greek member of the panel, but this is not true, really. I was talking to your wife last night, and you're a member of the diaspora for sure, and a renowned one for that matter. So I would like to ask you about the diaspora and your experience of it as a win-win for bilateral ties between Greece and Canada. And of course, you're very experienced as a former ambassador of Canada to Greece as well, and working with the community here in so many different capacities. What do you think works for boosting bilateral ties by engaging with the diaspora? And what are the best practices that you've experienced and seen, and promising initiatives that will drive us into this next decade for Canada-Greece relations?
Over the last 20 years, in various roles, I've had an opportunity to work with diaspora communities across Canada. Most recently, the Montreal Greek diaspora community, for a major initiative for the Hellenic Initiative. So I've had an opportunity to witness firsthand, first of all, the talent pool, the connections on a very personal level between members of diaspora communities in Greece, in Canada rather, and in Greece, which open up channels of dialogue and communication that are very, very important. The second point I would make about what really works is empowering diaspora communities in a collaborative way with the host country, in this case obviously Greece. I think relations between Greece and the diaspora continue to evolve. I think there was a time where diaspora communities were seen somehow as extensions of national policy in Greece, which is still to some extent a relevant factor in those relationships. But I think now the relationship is much more mature, and one where I think empowerment of those communities in terms of ideas, in terms of collaboration with Greece and Greek future development is very, very important. We see it through a number of initiatives. The Hellenic Initiative, I see Mr. Manatos, Executive Director of THI USA, is here. THI was founded during a very different time in Greece's history. We're now moving forward in a very positive direction, but that sense of building upon those connections, those communities for win-win benefits, not only for the diaspora communities and the countries they're in, but also win-win solutions for contributing to an innovative, dynamic, prosperous Greece has become, I think, very much a new narrative. So I think finding pathways, both at the political level, on a people-to-people level, but building relationships between organizations, whether it's the Hellenic Initiative, whether it's a HEPA, finding more opportunities for synergasia, for collaboration, joint projects, that bring a value added and make a real difference at the grassroots of Greek society. Like in many countries, there are opportunities and needs. There are incredible people that are looking for opportunities in Greece to collaborate with those in the diaspora who have experience and want to work in a very positive way for a better Greece.
Thank you. Mike, your name was mentioned, Mr. Martos. Yeah, you have been, of course, a member of the Greek American diaspora. 3 generations now, your family office in Washington DC has been at the forefront of US-Greece political relations and diplomatic relations. But now you're the executive director of THI in the USA, and THI has been quite instrumental and a key tool in uniting the diaspora across the world as well. Canada, Australia, now Europe. And at the same time, your Greek-American experience is very, very relevant to the Greek-Canadian experience as a diaspora here in North America. So I'm wondering, in your thinking, how do you compare the 2 diasporas? Are there any lessons for the Greek-Canadian diaspora that you think would be relevant, given that the Greek-American one is a little bit older compared to when it started, at least the bulk of the people who came? Any thoughts on that?
Good. Thank you, Katerina. First of all, thank you to Simeon for inviting me to be here. I'm slowly working my way around the Delphi stages around the world. I've been to Delphi and to Washington and here, so I'll work towards the others. So thank you for this opportunity. Thank you to John Sotos. I was on my 4th or 5th day on the job, and John said, you must come to Canada. You must be part of the forum there, so it's a pleasure to be here. It's a pleasure and honor to be on stage with 2 very good longtime friends, Katerina and Peter, and an honor to be with 2 distinguished individuals over here. While the ambassador may be the one non-Hellene on the panel, I am the non-Canadian on the panel. So, and I called Katerina and I said, what am I going to talk about? This is the subject being Greek Canadians, but she made a very good point that our experience in the United States could be helpful. And so we certainly had some great successes and a lot of mistakes. I wear a number of hats sitting here on stage, executive director of THI, but as Katerina mentioned, a family that next year it will have been 90 years that a Manitos has either worked in or with the U.S. government. In Washington, D.C., we had the blessing to promote Greece, Cyprus, the ecumenical patriarchate, Hellenism, and Orthodoxy. And in that capacity, we've been blessed to meet and work with some of the most successful Greek Americans involved in politics, in business, social, cultural groups. And look, I think our experience is significantly different than the Canadian experience, or even regionally in the United States. But it is this, it's a focus, and it's supporting those who have risen to a certain level in society, right? They're in the political side, I'll start there. My papu came to Washington, D.C. in 1936, worked on Capitol Hill for 20 years, and then was the first Greek American to work in the White House. My father, Capitol Hill for 15 years, the youngest assistant secretary in the Carter administration, and we've started lobbying for it after that. But in those capacities, anytime we would meet another Greek American, either in the political or the business world, doing what we could to support them. And that really pays off in the long run. And you have, of course, all kinds of variations of Greekness, right? But that really doesn't matter, because I find that with all individuals, there's some level at which they have attraction and the connection with Greece and Hellenism and Orthodoxy, and it's finding that. But really the challenge where we are in the United States is the future. And I think my children are the perfect example. Family involved for 90 years, yet my children are 4th generation, 1/4 Greek. So what does Hellenism and Orthodoxy mean to them? That's really the challenge, and I think that's where we are at THI. We've had a remarkable 13 years created during the crisis. Now we're investing in the future of Greece. But how do we capture those tens of thousands in the United States of Greek Americans, 2nd, 3rd, 4th generation, who are off the radar? They're not in churches, they're not at the Pancretan dances, they're not at the national Greek American organizations, but they're out there, and they have a connection and some kind of draw back to Greece and wanting to give back. And I think THI is one of the unique groups that can offer that. But happy to be part of this conversation and again, share with, along with our many successes, our many failures, and how that can be helpful to the Greek-Canadian experience.
Yeah. Arguably, we learn more about ourselves from our failures than our successes. So, and with that, I'll turn to the entrepreneur on the table, Peter Polidor. I mean, you've been at the forefront of new economy, new technologies, investing and supporting also Greek projects. And I'm wondering, on your experience, of course, with the presence both in Canada and the United States, what are your, as regards our specific topic about innovations and boosting innovations and the work that the diaspora can do in that regard, what has been your experience and your best practices, or some failures that we could all learn from that you could share with us?
Sure. First off, thank you very much for the invitation to be here today. It's wonderful being on stage with three people who contribute immensely to the diaspora and also just Hellenism in general. So it's an interesting question. From an inclusivity standpoint and from an innovation standpoint, which are two focuses here today, Greece and Canada are two countries that punch above their weight class, meaning there's, call it 10 million Greeks in Greece, 40 million Canadians in Canada. And I like to think the world needs more of both, right? We need more Canadians and we need more Greeks in the world. Innovation is something that is supported largely when you have access to opportunity and you have access to the infrastructure to actually build something. It was incredibly inspirational this morning hearing Minister Dima start talking about the infrastructure being built in Greece. It's wonderful to hear about the infrastructure being built here in Ontario, because none of this works without having the infrastructure in place. We are in the age of infrastructure. We need more energy, we need more electricity. We are unable to grow as a society unless we have these things in place. And I bring this up because we've made investments in Greece, we've made investments in Canada, and any time we've had an investment that did not go the way we planned, in Greece for instance, it was purely related to some kind of bureaucratic dam or stopping point or issue, speed bump if you will. And what's wonderful to see is a lot of those have been removed, and we see it. And it's reflected by the rest of the venture community and what people are investing in Greece. In Canada, we've had a decline in our venture capital investment. We peaked at about 15 billion Canadian, and now we're down to about 6 or 7, I want to say, last year. Whereas in Greece, we've hit a new high. Greece is over €500 million in euros, so that's got to be like a couple million Canadian. €500 million in investments going into these great companies. You've had over 100 companies access that capital, and that's a new level, and that's something that's been wonderful to see. So the big question I've always had for myself, and the one I was hoping we would talk about, is how do we, as the diaspora, build that bridge to help those companies or companies here expand both ways, which has been a topic of conversation. It's one of the reasons why we did Accelerate Greece years ago in partnership with THI, was the idea is how do we help companies in Greece that are building incredible technologies continue to build it in Greece, but sell it to the world. And that's been a big focus as to how I see the diaspora being able to help Greece, because it's about creating access to opportunities that make it inclusive for everyone. If someone has an opportunity and an ability to execute on it, and has a friendly face across the ocean saying, hey, come sell it here, that's always a helpful thing.
So you conduit through new organizations and initiatives that are actually quite focused on the business sector, the startup community, the VC world, and what have you. And to take that a little bit forward, because you also mentioned the infrastructure that is needed and the framework that is needed to facilitate that. I'd like to take us to a year ago when we had the signing of this Memorandum of Understanding on the tourism sector between Canada and Greece, and that was an exchange of information for best practices, sustainable tourism. And I would like to turn to the politician in our group, Mr. Delphi, and ask you, how is that going? Do you see that as generally such agreements on the bilateral level as foundational to stronger cooperation? And how can we, from the private sector and associations, better use these frameworks to deepen our relationship and create these opportunities that Peter is talking about?
I think that the way you described it, that they're foundational, it's a place to start. It's a framework that then assists other actions to follow. So it's important to not simply rest on our laurels once the memorandum of understanding is signed. Then you actually need to have a further follow-up planning that goes along with it in order to deepen those ties. And we all know that there's a great deal of tourism that comes from Canada to Greece. What we might want to do is consider how to be able to attract more Greeks to come in the other way as well. I have to tell you that in all the years that I've traveled to Greece and spent time with my family members, it was only this year, this past September, that I was able to have some family members come and visit us here. And so it's a harder sell, but the crown jewel of getting them here was going to see Niagara Falls. That was the way they came. And they loved it, they loved it. And so now I think we'll be able to have them come a second time. So I would just say that frameworks are important, MOUs are important, and there are so many ways in which our relationships can deepen. We've got a number of chambers of commerce, business organizations, AHI, IHAPA, somebody else mentioned. As you also may know, we have Senator Lou Laptakis here from Rhode Island. He's the president of the World Hellenic Interparliamentary Association, and so us as parliamentarians and legislators represent something like 93 legislators worldwide from countries all over the world who meet in Athens twice a year. And what we all have in common is our Hellenic roots. But that in turn deepens our relationships with those parliamentarians from those countries. We're able to therefore have deeper ties that would relate to investment opportunities, and from there it deepens those relationships too. Both, I'd also say, not just in terms of business ties, but also research and development is important. There's other aspects that we can also work together on across borders.
Amazing. Coming from the Canadian Rockies, I should mention I've always had this idea that an MOU on tourism could also be expanded to include professional exchanges and internships on the tourism sector, as it's quite seasonal tourism in Greece still, and to a certain extent in the Rockies as well. I mean, it would be a perfect match for Greek professionals to come here and train for the winter season in the Canadian Rockies. It would be an adjustment for the weather, for sure, the weather-wise, but still, it would be an amazing opportunity for them. Same question to you, Pastor Beck. What do you think could be the opportunity for internships and training and using this foundational bilateral cooperation to further our ties?
Well, first of all, I think the fact that there is an MOU is a very, very important signal in itself, because it shows a high level of political engagement, and a shout out to Annie Koudrapis, Member of Parliament, and her colleagues for seeing that MOU through. I think it was a very, very important step. Two comments. First of all, a commercial for a program that is perhaps not that well known. During my time as ambassador, I was happy to actually witness the signature of the Canada-Greece Youth Mobility Agreement, which has frankly not been taken advantage of to the extent that we had hoped at the time. There tended to be a flow from Greece to Canada more in terms of numbers than the other way around. I don't know what the stats are now, but they were a little bit out of balance. But that agreement provides a framework for young people between the ages of 18 and 35 where they can come and work in each other's country for a year, visa-free. And it provides a channel for young people to work in internship capacity in either country. So tourism is an obvious sector for that to happen. What is so important, I think, about this MOU is it's just not about growing the numbers. I think we all have concerns, whether it's in Canada or Greece, about too much of a good thing. It's the sustainability, it's the data collection about who's traveling and how can we build on that momentum to develop sustainable growth and tourism in both of our countries. So I think the combination, aligning that mobility agreement with some of the objectives of that MOU would be a very obvious, concrete first step. The other thing is, I think, as Katarina said, there's opportunity given our different seasonal dynamics. We have a member from Tetra Australia here, and if you go to the Rocky Mountains, you'll find a lot of young Australians that are working on ski lifts in the winter, and you know, why not more Greeks and Canadians going in either direction between our two countries. My last commercial related to the MOU, because I've been watching this for a long time, and this is not pointing fingers at our Greek friends in any way, but I think given the volume and the growth in tourism, we do need to up our game. The Greek ambassador spoke, and all of us have been lobbying for years about direct flights, which I think is an important first step, particularly when a Canadian pension fund is a majority owner of Athens International Airport, and they are very willing to see more flights and want to do everything possible to see those direct flights. But I'd also like to make a strong pitch to our Greek friends to see the reopening of an office of AOT here in Canada. Many of us will remember that there was a dedicated office here many years ago. It was closed. Although Canada is covered out of the United States, I think for a whole host of reasons, Canada is Canada, and we have a tourism brand, and we have an opportunity to grow that brand. And I would really, really like to make an appeal to see the return of an AOT presence in Canada. I think it would support and promote and give substance to the MOU between our two countries. So, end of my appeal. Thank you.
So a tourism office from the Greek state here in Canada. Would be that. Mike, more broadly, how can we, as the diaspora and our organizations, facilitate such mentorships, internships, technology and business partnerships to support bilateral ties? I know that THI has been, since its inception, focused on that aspect as well, that you have mentorships as well for Greek American students. But at the same time, other organizations like the National Hellenic Society, with the support, by the way, of the Hellenic Heritage Foundation, Canadian kids can also partake in this.
Two examples. One is, the National Hellenic Society, where I serve on the board, has this Heritage Greece program. We studied Birthright Israel, a tremendously impactful and successful program where they send young Jewish kids to Israel. We do this now with young Greek kids. And it's phenomenal. It's an immersion program. It's 2.5 weeks where they have classes every day in culture and language and history, but also travel and meet other Greeks. The other example of that is we have a Heritage America program where we bring these kids to Washington and we have them meet with some of the most successful Greek Americans in Washington, but also Zoom with Greeks around the country. That is remarkable to me, that some of the most phenomenally successful Americans who happen to be of Hellenic descent are willing to take the time year after year to talk to these kids about their family success story, what Hellenism and Orthodoxy means to them. And so I find that if you just simply ask, especially if it draws the next generation, there's a remarkable goodwill out there, whether it be mentorship, whether it be internships, which also we're doing with THI. It's just the ask. And again, it goes back to what I said earlier, that I think the model that worked with my grandparents' generation, my parents' generation, and my generation is changing. It was that, look, just be quiet, go to church, go to the dance, and this is what you do. Okay, that's great, but as each generation progresses, it doesn't work as well. But in all of us, I like to use the analogy that, especially the next generation, that there is a pilot light of Hellenism that all Greeks are born with. And it's up to us to find the way to ignite that pilot light of Hellenism in a way that's relevant to them and their lives. So if you're a young Greek American, third generation, and you are excited about politics, and sitting down with one of the legends in the United States in the political world talking to you as a niece or a nephew, as a fellow Greek, is a remarkable experience that has changed the lives of some people who are now in the system, all because of that original experience. So it's the ask, it's just finding a way to, whether it's the The individual with the non-Greek name who's out there, perfect example, Peter Baker, the New York Times White House correspondent. Reached out to him about 8 years ago. I understand you're Greek, has a phenomenal history. His father was at Harvard Law School with Sarbanes and Bradmus and Legends, but he really was engaged. We engaged him, and now he's on our stages getting more active with youth in other ways. So we're out there. It's the Trojan horse theory in some ways, but we're out there, just need to be asked.
And as you mentioned, from my capacity now as the Executive Director of the American Hellenic Chamber of Commerce in the USA, I would hope to see more of our member companies engaging with organizations in the diaspora to actually offer the opportunities for such memberships and internships and programs. So we hope to be working on that with your support from the business community as well. And Peter, if I may turn to you, and relate that a little bit to the quest for talent that is intensifying in this new era of fragmentation and competition among blocs, among countries. How then can you see the diaspora benefiting from this trend, given both in the US and Canada, the diaspora has been the bridge that connects to Greece, and if we may take advantage of it right now to build our ties on the economy as well, where do you see an opportunity there to begin with, and where would that lie?
Sure. So we literally just a few weeks ago had hosted the companies for Accelerate Greece here in Toronto, and I can tell you that the thing that I told each one of those companies is one of Greece's superpowers right now is the access to talent. The schools in Greece, the universities in Greece, you have people coming back to Greece from across Europe. You have incredible engineering talent. So a lot of these companies that can build teams of 10, 20, 30 people who are developing incredible technologies, it's easier to do that in Greece than, say, some places in the US and Canada. So I always reiterate that to them. From the internship standpoint, I mean that's an incredible tool. I interned with lots of Greeks over the years. It was things that were incredibly eye-opening and helpful and helped me decide, it taught me things like I didn't want to become a doctor because I don't like hospitals. But I did like the world of the venture and investment world, so it was good. Like everyone, Greek dads have a doctor. And so from that opportunity set, if we, like even companies we've invested in, or take companies from the US and Canada that are currently operating in Greece, like Tesla has an R&D facility in Greece. Why? Because the guy who designed the motors for Tesla is Greek and thought, I can access better talent there. Those are the hidden opportunities that companies here can now, in the world of era of Zoom and virtual, can set up satellite offices in Greece, have interns working there as well, but access that talent. I can say that at least one of the companies we've invested in, which is an artificial intelligence company, they're based in Kalandri, and they have successfully built their team there. And I don't think they would have been able to build that team if their offices were in New York or San Francisco or Toronto. And that's where I always say the superpower in Greece right now is access to talent and cost of talent.
And if I may follow up, what about the digital nomads and this trend? Is it something that you think, the transitory phase nature of it, is it something that might fit our current times of uncertainty in a way?
So the digital nomad trend, I can say, has started to wane a bit. Like, you're not seeing as many of those people because you're having a lot of companies saying, hey, we really want people back. But the idea of the satellites, I see that as something that will continue to kind of grow over time because the connectivity is there. And you can create culture when you actually have an office and a team of people that have learned from that culture and come here and go there and share best practices. But the digital nomad, I mean, if I was a digital nomad, I'd probably want to be on a beach in Greece too. So that's definitely a good thing too.
So we have 5 more minutes, and I'd like to do a really lightning round of a big question, which is how do you envision the Greek diaspora 2 generations from now, and their contribution to our topic of today, which is basically the future of our economies, right? Inclusive growth and innovation. So if I may start with Ms. Trifilopoulos.
Thank you, Katerina. One of the things that I've observed is that we Greeks are everywhere. Wherever you go, whatever country you visit, you're always going to find someone who emigrated to Greece, from Greece generations ago. And to Mike's point, I love the way you described the pilot light that resides in people who had Hellenic roots, because I think that is really the guiding light. And it doesn't matter whether you're 1/4 Greek or 1/8 Greek, you identify as being Greek. We've discovered this as well through our organization, the World Hellenic Interparliamentary Association, where we've discovered members who are from Africa, who are from South America, who are from Ukraine. And what we all have in common is our Hellenic origins and the great pride that we have around that. So I believe that two generations from now in Canada, certainly in Greece, we'll still have that Hellenic pride. We'll still have that those ties that bind us. And I believe that in fact will really propel the next generation and the generation after that to continue to love the motherland and to continue to want to work together, because that philotimo that I think we all share will be there and very strong.
Thank you, Pastor Beck.
I think it will be, the diaspora of the future will be far more focused, not just on nostalgia, but on a philanthropic, engaged, professional network of Greeks around the world who have a common purpose and who want to continue to support progress in Greece and support two-way dialogue between all that is good about Greece and all that is good in the diaspora communities around the world.
Mike, that sounds good for DHI, so what do you think?
It does, but I think 2 generations from now will be a stage with the Bakers up here, whose name isn't necessarily obviously Greek, the Becks up here, the Philhellenes, with both my mother and wife arguably are more Greek than some Greeks I know because they weren't born into it. They appreciate it, they've chosen it. More women. I do think that's an ancestral element that is working its way in the right direction. But I do think that there is a passion out there. It's not going to look the same, it's going to look a bit different, but I also be the 2.0 version, perhaps even more efficient and more effective if done right.
Peter, what do you think?
So I agree with everything everyone just said, and I'll take it a different way just because to answer the question. One of the great things is being, we all have pride of being Hellenes, Philhellenes, we all have that. But what I've seen is the Greek community has gotten a lot better at this, creating the business case. And I say this not from like the cold-hearted side of it, but the business case in the sense like why would someone want to be part of their heritage of the diaspora? Well, there's opportunities for you to meet incredible individuals, to go to Washington, D.C. and hang out with people like Ted Leonsis, right? Like there's all these successful Greeks that are always willing to give back. Like I myself, I love spending time with passionate Greeks who want to build the next enterprise that they're looking to do. And that is something that makes it cool. That is something that gives people value and realize, hey, there's a better reason than just being proud of Greek to be Greek. And when you add that to the mix, I think for generations to come, we will continue to be that powerhouse, much like you mentioned the Jewish community, much like they do it too. So we can do it, and we've been doing it longer.
Thank you all. I've been reflecting on the Socrates quote, the famous Socrates quote about being Greek is sharing the Greek education, the Greek culture. And this is something that we, as the diaspora, but also the Philhellenes in the group, very much adhere to. And it's both a challenge for future generations, but also the opportunity there for us. So with that, I'd like us to take a networking break, coffee break, and we'll be back in 15 minutes.
And to put this into context, when you look at the 2013 and the 2015 benchmark, there were a significant proportion of Canadians, and when asked about their impression of Greece, it was actually quite unfavorable. And when Minister Dimas talks about the past, actually this empirically shows that, more than a decade ago, the views that were held then significantly, materially, and from a statistical perspective, are that of the past, and that, you know, the favorable trend in terms of the proportion of Canadians that have an outright positive view of Greece has been trending positively over for more than a decade. The other thing is that when we look at travel patterns, because we also ask Canadians whether they would consider or not consider traveling to Greece, is that, you know, although it is a bit below the 2013 benchmark, you know, what you can see is that we are recovering to almost pre-pandemic levels in terms of the proportion of Canadians that would consider traveling to Greece. So what we're seeing is a bit of a normalization of the trend line. So that's good news for the Greek tourist sector, which for all intents and purposes is the juggernaut of prosperity and wealth and all good things in Greece. And you know, the thing is that setting aside the increased appetite to travel in Greece and the overall brand, you know, we measure a number of different dimensions. I'd just like to say that if you want a full copy of the report, just come up and I'll give me your business card, because this is only like the tip of the iceberg, because we track about 15 or 16 dimensions, but I just wanted to put a spotlight on certain things that I thought might be interesting. The other thing is that when we ask Canadians about Greece as a NATO ally, that the outright positive scores have hit a high that we haven't seen in quite a long period of time. And you know, it's just one of those things where I think one of the things for engagement, at least in terms of Canadians, and you can see 1 out of every 4 Canadians are unsure of their view of Greece. Is someone okay? Okay, thank you. About 1 out of every 4 Canadians are unsure about their impression of Greece as a NATO ally. And I think, you know, I think maybe one of the things to think about is that the Greek brand is so strong and so positive and so related to Greece as a place of beauty, Greece as a place of history, that we really have to think about how we can diversify the narrative and the brand related to Greece beyond that. And I think perhaps if I can have a leave behind as a call to action, that's one of the things that we should be thinking about. That the core Greek brand that has been driving the Greek economy and the Greek perception and what people around the world think of Greece is actually exceptionally strong. But we have to think of how we can add things to that Greek brand. Greece as a place to invest, Greece as a strong and secure and stable NATO ally, all those types of elements. But this speaks to the opportunity that when we're talking about Greece and Canada, we not only have to think of it as talking to Canadians as a place to visit and a place to invest, but also Greece as a strong and stable NATO ally. I always kind of say, you see the mean scores out of 10. So, you know, you can see a 7.5 would be like a B, 7.9, 7.8 would be plus. You know, in our latest wave of tracking in terms of people's impression of Greek foods, I know Alexander's riveted by this slide, so thanks, Alexander, for all your good work and Krinos on this front. But, you know, what you can see, at least, is that, you know, the numbers have been pretty strong from the very beginning, but what we're seeing is that the numbers related to perceptions of Greek foods even stronger. But, you know, I talked about the importance of adding to the narrative of Greece as a NATO ally. I would even go one step further, that talking about Greece as a place to invest or investing in a Greek company, even a more important imperative from a perspective of the numbers, because you can see that clearly 1/3 of Canadians are unsure the type of impression, and although the impressions have significantly improved, you can see back in 2013 and 2015, you know, more than 2 out of every 3 Canadians had unfavorable impressions of investing in a Greek company. So that's dropped in half. But, you know, the reality is that this is still fundamentally a work in progress. The interesting thing here, and we have all the demographic and regional subgroups for the full study, is check out the numbers for Canadians that are under 35 years of age. They're actually much more likely to have a positive impression. And maybe that's one of the key takeaways that I'd like to have for you today. that younger Canadians are actually much more likely to be open to consider traveling to Greece. They're much more likely to have positive impressions of Greece in general as a place to invest. And this goes back to our previous panel, not just about the diaspora, but what I'd say Canadians who have a positive impression of Greece, and those much more likely to be younger than those that are older. And I think that's a significant opportunity. So I won't call it a youth strategy, I'll call it a younger person strategy. It's actually critical in terms of driving the long-term numbers in terms of positive impressions. I'm going to close out with a couple quick notes, and then Katerina, I'll sit down with you to have a short, and it'll be very snappy chit-chat, yes? Okay. But you can see we need more definition on Greece in terms of investment. The travel is hitting pre-pandemic levels, but the positive news is that the current round of tracking has the strongest brand scores that we've seen in 2013, and for our American colleagues, for the study that we've done in the United States, actually the Greek brand in Greece is trending positively and actually also hitting highs. So you have to think of the mind share, the situation, the perceptions that Canadians and Americans have of Greece is on the upswing. And maybe I'll close out with this one thought. We should think of ourselves at a particular moment in time. What do I mean by that? That the numbers are trending in the right direction in terms of people's positive impressions and people seeing Greece as perhaps something a little more than what they thought in the past. The numbers are trending positively, as we heard from Minister Dimas, in terms of the environment in Greece in order to take advantage of these opportunities. And if I add to this moment of time, perhaps a call to action. We're talking a lot about things, but I'm a big believer in impact. That's why I volunteer with the Hellenic Initiative, and that's why I am part of the Delphi family. Can I say that? Yes? Yeah, okay. Like a positive part of the Delphi family. But I'd always think this, we need to distill this down to impact. We have to think of what does perfection look like for the relationship between Greece and Canada, or the United States and Greece. And for us to think about the narrative and the story that we can add to that. So, for Canada, is it Greece and Canada cooperating in the energy field? For Canada, is it Greece and Canada cooperating on transport? Is it cooperation in the post-secondary education sector? But we need to add more. There's a powerful Greek story right now that is very positive, but we need to add more to that story. And I think, and my piece of advice or my view is, we have to be specific, because Canadians will not be able to think of 5 or 6 things that we can do together. We have to pick 3 sectors. We have to see how we can move forward the file on those sectors, and then bring forth concrete action so that we can take this positive trend line that is quite exceptional into even a higher positive level. And with that, thank you for your attention, and I'm going to sit down with Katerina.
I had the opportunity to look at the survey and to follow up on what you just said at closing here. If you were to pick those 3 sectors, based on my viewing of this, I would certainly pick the food sector, the energy sector, and the defense sector. What would be your take?
No, I would agree with that. And I would also add one other sector, and I'd like to say full disclosure, I have a bias because I'm the Chancellor of Carleton University. I think we need to build stronger connections between the university sectors in Canada and the United States. If you look at one of the reasons why the United States has been a real economic juggernaut is because they've been able to attract talent, and they have educational partnerships where the best and the brightest, go to the United States, and they create jobs. I think there's an opportunity, and I think in this particular environment, there's an opportunity to have more partnerships between Canadian and Greek universities. And so that we can nurture the next generation of entrepreneurs in both of those countries for them to kind of build those partnerships. And I always kind of say there's no substitute for the friendships that you make. Because maybe you are, and if we think of kind of the ideal world, maybe if you have, and I'll just make this up because I can do that. But, maybe it has to do with engineering, or maybe it has to do with business, where we have kind of interchange between MBA programs in Canada and Greece, and that basically it's just another incubator for business partnerships and prosperity for both countries.
And that would certainly nurture the generational aspect that you've already seen in the numbers, like a more positive thing towards the younger generation of Canadians and Americans, by the way, on investing in Greece. I also noticed from the numbers from the survey that there is, especially on the question of investing, a regional bias. In America, I saw the Northeast being more prone to investing in Greece, if I remember it right. Do you see a similar trend in Canada, or do you have any takeaways from the regional aspect of where people from particular regions would like to?
Yeah, well, we see some of the same dynamic whenever we're doing this type of research for other European countries and perceptions as places to invest. That in the northeastern United States and eastern Canada tend to look a little more towards Europe, while if you look at the West in the United States, for example, they also look at Europe, but are more likely to kind of look at Asia Pacific as an opportunity. So yeah, well, that same type of dynamic is in play that I see. But the thing is that when we think of it as a place to invest, and I think those strong favorable scores, you have to think of them as gateways to discussions on a whole bunch of other things, like, have you ever thought of investing in Greece? You know what I mean? Have you ever thought of having a Greek company as a business partner? So this is where we have to kind of, when I say we, I mean the diaspora, we have to up our game in terms of adding more to that narrative related to Greece in order to take advantage of the goodwill. Because if we don't, if we don't tell people, they will just not know. And then afterwards, there's nothing worse for any of, I'm an entrepreneur, and I know there are a number of entrepreneurs in the room here. There's nothing worse than having a client tell you, I didn't know you did that. It's torture, right? So, the thing is that for Greece, when we have that really positive relationship, talking about Greece as a NATO ally, talking about Greece as a place to invest, is an opportunity for us to tell people and remind people that there's more. There's more that you can do, and there's more to the relationship that can be had.
And last question from the positive trend that you're mentioning on, and I believe the title of your survey is Safe, Cynic, and Surging. Do you see any wins against this continued surge? Any political frameworks, or like a black swan event or something that might actually discontinue this trend? And I know this is not on your survey, but I know you.
The black swan random events? Yeah, you're right. Why don't I put something on the table? The people that are most positioned to stop this trend are Greeks. That we do something stupid. And you know what? And the thing is at the same time, we're the best position to move it forward. So, you have to realize, it's kind of funny, we do a lot of work for companies, and I remember I was watching a focus group, and we were asking people's impressions of a particular large company, and someone said, they're not in the news, they must be doing a good job. The problem is that when you look at those 2013 and 2015 numbers, Greece was in the news too much, and it was about one particular thing. Greece has not been in the news as much. However, when things like the ranking economist is in the news, when the Prime Minister visits Canada, when the Prime Minister visits the United States, that those are all things that put us on the radar and create and add a narrative. So we have to think of making sure that we don't have an unforced error back in Greece, but at the same time, staying out of the news with the exception of being positive, but telling people, and I think for a lot of folks, that economist making Greece the country of the year was like, they never thought of Greece in that way. But that was a gateway discussion. So I think, I think there's significant opportunities. We have to just be a little more strategic, and I don't think we can underestimate the impact of having ministers from Greece come here, or the Prime Minister visiting, and putting that on the radar for Canadians to see Greece for more than kind of the wonder as a place to go visit.
Super. Thank you very much for sharing this survey with us.
Super. Thank you.
I think our mics are both working.
I think so.
Mr. Burns, George, if I may, it's surely a pleasure to have you here at the 4th edition of the Toronto Economic Forum. During my time as ambassador, I had a front row seat as your company first invested. I think it was in 2012. But you've been at the helm of Eldorado for nearly a decade. You've certainly made a lot of progress in Greece over that time. How have things changed during the time you've been at the helm of your company? And how have you been able to build long-term social license in Greece?
Great question. So, yeah, it's a very positive time to be in mining and in Greece. And for us, we were committed to the country. We know the geologic prospectivity through the country is enormous. It's underexplored. And there were some good deposits that were undeveloped. That's what attracted us to the country. What's changed, I'd say, is a global phenomenon. Metals are necessary for these modern lives we all live, and I think most jurisdictions now are focused on ensuring they've got a secure path to those required critical minerals. And in our case, we're building a copper gold project in Greece that's copper's a critical mineral in the EU now, and there's a focus on securing that pipeline of raw materials. So, for us, globally things have changed, and within the country, I believe we've been able to show that the mining of the past, which had a lot of challenges, is not the mining of the present or the future. And so our history, we acquired the Olympias assets, and Olympias originally started as a fertilizer company by a Greek company, and then later a metal producer in the same ore body. But in those early days, the materials were not properly managed, and as a result, there was water and soil contamination. And obviously that's not good for the planet, it's not good for the local people. What Eldorado did when we acquired the assets, we invested $100 million to clean up the historic impacts from Olympias. That was before we made any metal or any revenue. And essentially what we did is we built a triple line facility to take the materials from the prior mining activity and put it in a protected space. And that literally went over the hearts and minds of the peoples from Olympiada, which is right on the Aegean, right next to the mine. And so when I joined Eldorado a decade ago, what I read was that there was opposition from that community. When I got to the country in my first month, I found that that community had flipped. And they flipped because they saw us doing the cleanup and developing plans to mine in the future in a sustainable way. So bottom line, trust is not given, it's earned, and I truly believe we've earned the trust of the local residents, the country of Greece, and I think we've got a bright future ahead of us.
You've got an important milestone coming up next year in Skouries, if I'm not mistaken, at your gold copper mine. Can you talk a little bit about where you are with the project, how far along, and maybe talk about the technology that you're using, which is directly aligned with Eldorado's environmental ESG philosophy, if you will. So I'm sure there'll be interest in how you've pivoted in terms of your approach to developing Skouries.
Yeah, so for Skouries, it's this phase of construction. This is the second phase. It's a little over $1 billion. And earlier this year, we committed another $150 million to essentially buy a mining fleet and mine the open pit with our people and our equipment rather than using a contractor. So it's about $1.2 billion in this phase of construction. We're nearly finished. We'll have it up and running in first metal into production at the end of the first quarter, so we're about 5 months away. And this is a very unique design in this particular asset. So it's an open pit and an underground mine, and we're developing both simultaneously. It'll produce copper and gold. Revenue streams on our long-term pricing is about 50-50. The design is pretty unique. So for the first decade, we mined the open pit and the underground. It's about 2/3 open pit, 1/3 underground. And in our business, where we basically take rocks out of the earth, we crush them and we grind them to flour consistency. We remove the metals, and what's left, the bulk of what's left, we call tailings. So it's ground up rock. Historically, globally, most companies take that ground up rock, which is in slurry form, it's like mud, and it's put behind a dam, and over time it dries out, and then it can be reclaimed at the end of the mine life. We've gone forward with a different technology, so we're building an enormous plant. It's about the size of a soccer field. It's 3 stories tall, and within this building, there's these massive filters. So we take this tailings and we put it through the filter. What we end up is getting a cake out of the filter, so it's a conveyed material. I call it dry. It has some moisture in it, but you can't pump it. It sits on a conveyor in a truck, and it's a solid material.
So it's stacked, in other words, when it's
stacked, and it takes less water to run an operation that way. It takes less space, because when you remove the water from the tailings, it's about 40% less footprint, so we have less impact on the environment. We recycle more water because we're pulling the water out, and it's safer. I mean, there's been no dry stack dams fail, and unfortunately, we've seen some of these slurry dams fail in the last decade. So, much safer technology. The beauty is when we finish the open pit in a decade, and then we'll be completely underground mining, the tailings from the underground go back into the open pit, and at the end of the 20-year mine life, we completely backfill the hole and fully reclaim it. So there are not many mines on the planet that were designed this way, and so it's a much more sustainable way to mine. And even if the mine lasts more than 20 years, and I believe it will because this ore body continues to depth, then we'll build another surface dry stack dam to be able to sustain it beyond 20 years. So pretty unique design, environmentally friendly, and all that's creating more jobs. This investment in the dry stack filter plant is a big investment, and there's people required to run it, so it's going to be good for the local economy.
Perhaps you could talk a little bit about just Eldorado's approach to the environment and sustainability, because if you look on your website, there's a lot that's happening at the community level, but also in terms of environmental mitigation and the long-term view of rehabilitating mines and so on. But I think it's an important message that the mining sector conveys through Eldorado as to how it's done well.
Yeah, I mean, beyond the design of Skouries, one of the things we do is we're very transparent about how we operate. So we have a website, and on that website we have more than a couple hundred control points on our site. So we measure dust, noise, vibration, water quality, air quality, and this material, some of it's live, it's being collected and straight onto the website so anybody can take a look at it. Others where we have to send water samples off to be analyzed, and then that data is automatically put on the website. So we have more control points on our mine than the entire country has for the cities in Greece. So it's a remarkable amount of data collection, and we're doing all this, one, to demonstrate we're a sustainable company. On the front end of mining, I would say, again, it's building trust with local communities about what you're going to do and how you're going to do it. So in northern Greece, we have a project that's on the drawing board, and we're working on the permitting for that, and then we'll move forward with consultations with the local communities to describe the project. And if they want the project, then we'll move forward with construction.
George, earlier we were talking about areas where Greece can evolve and the image of Greece can change, and obviously the mining sector, which did not always have the support that it perhaps does now, is a real avenue for opportunity, particularly with the global shift, secure supply chains and so on. Can you talk a little bit about how El Dorado's robust presence in Greece can be leveraged in terms of the mining sector, not only in Greece as a best practice, as an example, but also maybe how to engage other Canadian mining companies or from elsewhere to be part of the Team El Dorado, if you will, in Greece?
Great question. So, from a mining perspective, you have to mine where the metals are, and they're not everywhere. And Greece is very well endowed. So the Tethyan Belt is a major belt that runs through Greece. It kind of starts in Turkey, into Greece, up through Bulgaria, Romania, into the Stans. And that belt's full of all kinds of metal mines. And in Greece, I mean, if you go back, the Skouries mine, the outcrop of the Skouries mine was actually mined back in the days of Alexander the Great. So when we were developing the open pit, there was a furnace discovered by the archaeologists where they were melting metal way back then, and we moved that off-site so it could be preserved for the future. So it is a great region with good prospectivity for other mines. There hasn't been a lot of exploration, so that's the beginning point, is attracting investors to explore, to discover these ore bodies. I truly believe as we get Skouries up and running and we can demonstrate the profitability, others will follow behind us. And we're not finished. I mean, we have the Olympias mine up and running. We'll have Skouries up and running next year. We have our Prime Hill project that we're working on permitting. I honestly believe that'll be in construction in 2027. And beyond that, we have other exploration projects that we're very excited about. So with our success, I know others will follow.
So stay tuned on future investment, right?
For sure.
George, during my time, El Dorado Gold's investment was kind of seen as a litmus test for political will and the Greek government's resolve to support foreign investment. Could you talk a little bit about the investment climate that you see now in Greece? How are your concerns and how do you engage with the government? I mean, there are always going to be challenges, right? And it's how, I guess, you manage them. But how is that going? And partnership, obviously, very, very important, particularly as a foreign investor. So could you give us kind of an overview of how that relationship has evolved and perhaps where there is room to go further, to overcome some challenges? How do you see it?
Yeah, I'd say what's really changed is Prime Minister Mitsotakis and his government has embraced the benefits that our investments can bring to Greece. And, I mean, what that means for us, we have an investment agreement that secures the investment climate for us. In terms of support for the financing that went on, we have Greek banks that are part of the financing for the Skouries project. We in fact got some funding from the EU, and I think that by itself tells you, is this working? Yeah, that by itself tells you that there's strong support within the country. And I think one of the big catalysts is the pay that we have in mining is significantly above the average in terms of Greece. In fact, we pay at the top end of the scale. So it's bringing high quality jobs, which generate tax. We have high paying jobs. We pay royalties on the metals that we produce. 40% of the royalties in Halkidiki go back to the local communities and are invested in projects. So, you know, where the impacts are, there's funding, and 60% goes back to the federal coffers. And then we pay profit tax on top of that. So I think we're proving that this is an industry that can be additive to shipping, can be additive to tourism. And I think the country's got a long runway of investment opportunities. So You bring the investments in our case it's $3 billion US dollars, and then the exports and the raw materials that the EU would need are also beneficial to the country.
Taking a step a bit back from just Eldorado's operations in Greece, maybe I can put a question more in the Greek-Canadian context. Eldorado remains one of the largest foreign investments in Greece. Your company invested during the depth of the economic crisis, which for many was a very positive message. You obviously have a long-term view about the opportunity in Greece, and you, well, more than hinted at future opportunities, one you mentioned. But in terms of Greece, Canada, are there things that you think we could do from a private sector perspective to build upon the investment presence that Canada has, whether it's Eldorado, whether it's majority ownership by PSP and Athens International Airport, and there are others. From a private sector perspective, what more do you think governments can do to build upon all that is good in the relationship and build on possible future opportunities?
A few things I heard earlier this morning resonate with me. So, I mean, one would be the youth and education. So universities connecting, and Canada's got a robust mining industry. Greece actually has great universities. There are a lot of capable, trained, educated, mining-related people in Greece. What's missing in Greece is a metal industry for them to get experience. So many have left Greece, and we're recruiting them back. If we can find a Greek that's got international experience, on-the-ground experience, we can bring them back, and they can help us train the new workforce we're training faster, and it eliminates the amount of expats that we need to bring back otherwise to build this industry. So that'd be one. I'd also say the two countries can collaborate on how to streamline permitting. Permitting is a big issue for our industry, and sometimes bureaucracy gets in the way of getting things done smart and fast. So even here in Canada, although we're robust, we have provinces, we have federal government, clarity on the boundaries between the two on permitting. Then you have brownfields versus greenfields. These things aren't taken into account as much as they could. And the last thing I would say, and I think it's true generally in government, if you're trying to grow something quickly and the industry starts moving, and in Greece, because of the economic recovery, there's lots of permit applications in the Ministry of Energy and Environment. And there's not enough people to digest all that at the pace that would be prudent if you want the investments to move. So, and we have the same challenges in Canada. We have a mine in Val-d'Or, Quebec, and it's growing in size. But we need permits to build new infrastructure for the expansion, and it will happen. But there's so many mines being built in the Val-d'Or region, the ministry's challenged with having technical experts to go through these stacks of permits. So I think there's a lot of synergies in my sector alone where both countries are headed in the same direction and can cooperate and learn from one another.
George, in our remaining time, maybe just a quick question about developing greater capacity in the mining sector in Greece. You mentioned that there perhaps is room for training of more mining engineers, perhaps there's more room for opportunities for that talent to be used. Do you see an opportunity for Canada to be more involved in developing that mining training and capacity in Greece through universities, through institutions? Do you have any thoughts about how we can do that? Also, let me thank your company for supporting a scholarship program where we actually supported a young Greek mining engineer at UBC who I believe is going to go back to Greece. And women in mining is something that I know your company is very sensitive to. But are there things that you think we could do to develop that enhanced capacity for training in mining in Greece?
For sure. I mean, right now, we're hiring a large workforce. We have about 800 miners with the Olympias mine. We've got more than 2,000 people at Skouries right now, building the mine and operating. So we're hiring the operators as the construction completes. The construction workers are temporary, but essentially there's going to be about 3,500 direct and indirect jobs. And so it's a massive undertaking. But these future minds, we're gonna need to develop more. So again, I think training and educating more technical people, the trades, there'll be a need for additional trades, where right now we're cooperating with the Greek government on building a trades training center in Helsinki to supply the future workers that we're going to need. So, and again, I think because of the synergies in my sector, there's a massive opportunity on education training, both technical and tradespeople.
Well, on that final note, George, thank you very much for being here today, and it's very encouraging to see the trajectory of Eldorado in Greece.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So this next session, I must admit, is a pride for us Greeks, because we're going to present the activities and the operations of perhaps the most important private business in Greece, Metlen, which is now listed at the London Stock Exchange. They have operations almost in 5 continents, and they are expanding all the way. Before I will have Ms. Vivian Bouzali to present, the activities of the company. Vivian is the Chief Corporate Affairs and Communication Officer of the company. She's the driving force beneath of all these efforts, of course, under the wise leadership and the brilliant leadership of Evangelos Mitrilineos. So with this, let us see a video for 30 seconds, and then I will invite Vivian to join us here on the podium.
The world needs progress. We power it, literally. Forging strength, fueling resilience, powering homes, empowering nations, innovating at every step, from green metallurgy to clean energy. We shape more than industries. We shape the world ahead. Metal, always made of metal and full of energy.
Thank you everybody for being here today. I just realized that this is the 4th year for this conference. I have been thinking the last 2, and now I also saw, Simeon, that you're putting in new cities across the globe. The reason I'm saying that is that usually we keep following Simeon around the world. But today, apart from that, we're here because of our business in Canada. My goal today is to give you a glimpse of who we are and what we do. So allow me to advertise Metlen today. It's important because we realize that sometimes we tend to be very complex in what we do. So bear with me so you understand a little bit more of what we do, and I will try to avoid all technicalities and explain to you what we do in energy, since I've heard before from Mr. Nano's presentation that energy is a sector that can build stronger relationships between Greece and Canada. So very happy to be in Toronto for less than 18 hours for this special edition of Delphi Economic Forum. We're meeting at a time of great change for economies, for industries, for countries, surely for the global energy landscape. For us at Metlen, this is also a defining moment in our own journey. As you may all know, or for those that you don't know, Metlen Energy and Metals is a London-listed multinational company. We're active in 42 countries, in 5 continents, employing almost 10,000 people. We operate where the 2 worlds meet, energy and metals, both essential to our global transition journey towards what we like to call a sustainable economy. What makes the Metlen unique is that we have made sure that those 2 come together. We have a fully integrated model that connects energy and metals into a value chain, allowing us to unlock value from multiple sources, enhance efficiency, and build long-term resilience. It's exactly that synergy that gives Metlen the ability to grow with stability, innovation, but with purpose. Our story began in Greece. Originally, we were called Mytilineos, a company with very deep industrial roots and very much a forward-looking spirit by Evangelos Mytilineos. Over the years, we have evolved from a regional industrial group into a global energy and metals leader, combining decades of manufacturing excellence and innovation. Basically, we are looking ahead on what's next. In 2024, Metlen achieved a turnover of 5.6 billion euros and an EBITDA of 1.08 euros. And that we thought that reflects the strength and the balance of our diversified business model. 2025 was a landmark year for us, a great milestone. In August of 2025, Metlen completed its primary listing at the London Stock Exchange while maintaining a secondary listing in Athens. And just a month later, we proudly joined the index Fuji 100, a recognition that we think speaks not only for our financial performance, but also to the trust to Metlen's long-term vision, governance, and of course growth potential. Today, Metlen stands as Europe's only vertically integrated aluminium producer. We cover the entire chain from bauxite mining and alumina refinery to primary aluminium production within the EU. We're also one of the few European companies active across the full energy value chain, from power generation and renewables to grid infrastructure, energy storage, and digital solutions. Furthermore, the company is expanding its activities in both circular metallurgy and critical metals, which also strengthening its strategic footprint in the defense industry through our REM technology sector. Our evolution to all of that has been driven by a very clear purpose. We want to deliver clean, reliable, and affordable energy, while at the same time building a more resilient and circular industrial ecosystem. Earlier this year, we had our big capital markets day in London. Our executive chairman and CEO, Mr. Evangelos Mytilineos, shared with the audience our next chapter, our strategic path for the years ahead. It's a strategy focused on three very clear priorities. First is to strengthen our core business in energy, metals, infrastructure, and concessions. Second is to expand into new high-growth areas, such as critical and circular metals and advanced defense technologies. And of course, third is to continue evolving from within, investing in efficiency, digital innovation, and above all, our people. What really sets Metlen apart is basically our ability to create value across the entire clean energy and industrial chain, from the raw materials to renewable generation and smart infrastructure. This integrated model has allowed us not only to grow, but at the same time grow responsibly, ensuring that our progress contributes to a cleaner and more secure and more sustainable future for all. Across the world, Metlen's energy transition platform brings together more than 12 gigawatt of renewable and storage projects under development and construction. From Europe and the UK to Australia, Chile, North America, our teams delivers complex projects that power communities need, that drive sustainable growth. In the first half of 2025, Metlen achieved remarkable growth in renewable energy production. We're generating a total of 854 gigawatt from renewable sources, and we had an impressive 35% increase compared to the same period of last year. Of course, more than half was produced through our international operations. This performance highlights Metlen's dynamic growth and our expanding role in the global green energy landscape. At the same time, our integrated utility business in Greece continues to grow steadily. Through our Protergia brand, we now hold more than 22% of the retail energy markets in Greece, and we're aiming to 30% by 2027 or earlier. We continue to strengthen our position in the Greek natural gas market. Beyond Greece, Metlen is steadily expanding its presence across southeastern Europe as we speak through natural gas supply and trading. And this progress is very important because it reflects our broader international strategy and our commitment to driving sustainable growth both in Greece but also abroad. I think what gives us a real advantage is the way our two worlds, energy and metals, come together, fold each other. They complement each other, they reinforce each other, and at the same time they create synergies that only a few companies across the globe can replicate. Actually, until a few years ago, there wasn't not even one that could come even closer. So this connection allows us to have, on the one hand, industrial expertise with clean energy delivery. On the other hand, try to get closer to tangible ways in the global decarbonization phase. So a few things about Canada. We are here in a country that perfectly represents both the opportunities, also the responsibilities of the global energy transition. We entered the Canadian market at the end of 2023 with a very long-term, very clear vision, which was to invest in clean energy infrastructure and to build partnerships that create real, lasting values for our local communities, for the economy, for the environment, and for our shareholders, of course. Our first step is a strategic investment of 850 million Canadian dollars in Alberta, with two large-scale solar projects, the Georgetown and Sunnybrook. Basically, Georgetown is 280 megawatts, and Sunnybrook is 332. Together, those two projects will generate more than 900 gigawatt hours of clean electricity every year. That means that it will be enough to power more than 80,000 homes and at the same time avoid 600,000 tons of CO2 annually. But we think that these projects are much more than numbers because at the same time they represent jobs, they represent skills, new opportunities. They will create 1,000 construction jobs at least, 100 permanent positions supporting the local economy and the regional growth. So we're proud that Calgary already hosts Metlen's North American headquarters. It's cold, but it's nice. It's the center from which we coordinate our operation across Canada. And it's far away, but still nice, and the United States. It's also our base for future projects in renewables, battery storage, which were very, very good, and number one in the UK market, and in the grid modernization that is needed both in Europe, in the United States, and also in Canada. So our commitment to this country is not exactly limited to investment. We have tried to come closer to at least the local environment, to extend to partnerships that we found out there, to feel included and to engage with the community. Therefore, we work very closely with indigenous communities on shared development initiatives initiatives. We support agriculture-focused scholarships, very big community in the agriculture there, very big sector for the province. And we have shared development initiatives that support and explore agrivoltaic solutions, agriculture with PV parks that basically can help into creating clean energy generation and at the same time sustainable farming. So this is what I mean by saying that we are trying to build our business, but at the same time doing it with respect and with value that honors the local heritage and the community bonds. I'm also proud to say that more than half of our Canadian team, they're all Canadians by the way, are women. That's not a statistic for us. It's a reflection and a commitment to diversity and equality and of course empowerment in the energy sector. So wrapping it up, globally, apart from Canada now, globally Methlen operates 0.8 gigawatt of energy storage systems. We're constructing 3.1 gigawatt of storage as we speak. This expertise that we have positioned us as one of the few trusted partners for utilities, for corporate off-takers, for governments, in wanting to build a flexible, resilient energy network for future demands. At the same time, we're also leveraging our expertise in data center infrastructure. We have recently completed Greece's largest facility for digital realty to explore opportunities and also opportunities and developers that operates across, apart from Greece, across the world, but for sure in Canada. Because we think that the digital transformation that is shaping our world goes hand in hand with the green transition, we don't feel that you need to decide one or the other. We think that those two need to go parallel. So we aim to become a reliable partner in both. Sustainability is not something, it's not a nice word for us. And it's not something separate from what we do. It's embedded in what we do, and it's embedded in the way we operate. That's why we don't like to talk about sustainability. It's something that we do it. If we can do it, if we are to do it, we need to do it in a sustainable way. Otherwise, we're not going to talk about ESG and sustainability, and we don't think that exists. So, however, I need to tell you that we are included in the Dow Jones Sustainability Index, of course, in the MSCI Index rating, and we ranked first in the multi-line utility sector for the London Stock Exchange ESG Index. Those recognitions are important, but they're not achievements. We think that it's the reminders. When we do our everyday job, they're reminding us of our responsibility that we have to keep improving and to keep minimizing the environmental footprint. And of course, always prioritize safety and act with transparency and integrity whenever we operate and in every country that we operate. So, as Methlen continues to grow internationally, our values are Methlen values, are the values that we inherited from our chairman and travel with us. We make sure that those values guide the way we do our work with partners, investors, communities. Honesty and respect, they're not words for us that we like to just saying them. It's a real sense of purpose in the way that we do our job. And at the heart of all of that, there's a word that we use we remind ourselves and we use in our everyday life, and it's a very, very simple principle. I know that I'm not telling you anything which is rocket science, but for us it's very, very important, and it's called trust. Trust is basically what has helped us build all these partnerships in so many different countries and with so many different people, having started from Athens. Having started from a city outside Athens, where the aluminium of Greece stands. So, if I can wrap up and say if I can capture our essence in very simple terms, I would say that from Athens to Toronto, from metals to megawatts, Metlin is always ready to play its part in building a cleaner, smarter, and a more sustainable world. We bring our expertise, our people, our partnerships here in this country to Canada, and we look forward to continue this journey together. Thank you very much.
GrecaTV is the television of the Greek diaspora, a place where news, music, interviews, and cultural shows keep our Hellenic spirit alive across Canada and the world.
Founded by Bill Fatsis, a retired justice, politician, and community journalist, GrecaTV is his lifelong dream to preserve Greek language, faith, and heritage for future generations. And it's completely free, anytime, anywhere.
Bill invites you all to join him. Watch GrecaTV, celebrate your culture, and support his vision by watching and advertising with GrecaTV. Together, we keep our heritage strong.